So let's now set up our React project. Now there are actually multiple ways of setting up a React project, but the most common one is to use something called Create React App. So that's basically a piece of software that will set up a React project for us. Now in order to be able to run that Create React App application, we first need to install something called Node.js on our computers. And so let's now start by doing that. So let's open up a new tab in our browser, and then we simply search for node.js. Then open up here the first result, probably at nodejs.org, and then you need to download a Node version, and it doesn't really matter if it's this one or the current one. So just download this one which has LTS, and it also doesn't matter if it's version 18 or 20 or whatever it will be in the future. So please go ahead now, download this Node.js installer and install it on your system. So pause the video here, and once you're done doing all that, I will meet you back here. Okay, so hopefully you were able to download and install Node.js on your computer. And if for some reason you weren't, then you really need to solve that problem. And maybe you can try asking in the Q&A section of this video, so of this lecture in Udemy. But I'm confident that it should have worked. And to test if it did work, let's come back here to our code editor and open again the terminal that we had down here before. So let's come to View and then Terminal. And here is still actually the terminal that we had before. So we can clear that by using Command or Control K like this, or you can also just open up a new one by clicking here on plus. So that simply opens up a new one, then you can basically trash that first one. Okay, so again, here in the terminal is where we can write some commands and where web developers actually spend a fair amount of time in order to run all kinds of different things. So we are in the terminal always in a folder. And so right now we are in this Today I Learned folder because, well, that's where VS Code automatically opens up this terminal when we're using it in VS Code. But anyway, in order to test if Node.js was successfully installed, let's write npm-v. And so this will then give you some number here. So if it didn't give you a number, so if you got an error, then again you need to solve the problem probably by asking in the course Q&A. But if you got some number here and the number does not matter, then you were successful and that you are now ready to set up a React project using Create React App. So let's type npx create React App, and then we need to tell Create React App the name of the application that we want to, well, create here. So I will call it again Today I Learned, and make sure to use dashes here again. Today-I-learned. And so now let's hit enter, and this is going to take a lot of time. Now here we need to say yes. So basically just type a Y on your keyboard, hit enter again. It's now going to download a lot of packages from the npm repository, which means Node Package Manager repository. So that's basically like a repository where we have thousands or maybe even millions of open source libraries that we JavaScript developers can use. And React is actually one of them. So we could do this whole setup here also manually, but instead we use, again, this Create React App application to do the setup for us. And setting up the project like this really takes a lot of time. So feel free to grab a snack or to get something to drink in the meantime. And I will meet you back here once this is done. Okay, so hopefully you successfully installed React with this command. And if for some reason you got some error here, you might not have permissions maybe to run this command. And in that case, you can run the same command and start with sudo. At least on Mac and on Linux, this might work. On Windows, this is no solution. But anyway, if this did not work for some reason, so if you got some weird errors, always feel free to ask in the course Q&A, where you will very quickly get help. Okay, but again, I will simply assume that it should have worked for you. And so let's now check out what exactly happened here in our folder. So here in the project folder, we get a new folder, which is also called Today I Learned. And the reason for that is that this is exactly the name that we gave the React project. So in the command that we wrote here, we gave it a name, right? And so that's then the name of the folder. Now, since this folder here is actually also called Today I Learned, let's maybe move everything that's in here just into this folder right here. So let's do that in the Finder. So outside of here, so on the desktop, we have our folder. And now let's create a new folder called V1, which stands for version 1, which is basically the code that we wrote up until this point. And let's actually close all these files here first. All right, and then let's grab all the files, put them here into V1, and then let's get everything that's here into, so right here, so into the Today I Learned folder. So now we can just delete this empty one. Okay, so in the end, once you're done doing this, you have your original Today I Learned folder, which then contains everything that we just installed, plus the V1 folder with the files that we created previously. All right, so let's close that here. So here we have that all. So V1 is what we did before. And then here inside this folder, we now have node modules, we have public, we have the source folder, and we have all these other files that were created for us using create React app. So let's go through them one by one. So node modules is the folder that contains all the NPM packages that were installed. So those packages that I was telling you about earlier. So our application, in fact, is using these hundreds, maybe even thousands of packages. So let me see if we can find, yeah, here is React. So that's React that we will be using, but React probably needs all these other packages. And so basically we had to create and install all of them here. Then we have the public folder, which is where we have some stuff that we actually don't need. Let's get rid of this icon, move it to the trash, and the same for all of these here. So all these files, we don't need them. Let's just move them to trash. But the index.html file, we actually will need. Then we have source, and here the same. Let's just delete app.css. And this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So in the end, we only want to have index.js and app.js. So go ahead and delete everything else here. All right, and that's actually it. So in the end, we only want the public folder and the source folder with these three files. Okay, and now let's go into index.js, which is basically the first file that will be loaded by our React application. And here again, let's delete some stuff. Let's maybe make the sidebar a bit smaller. Okay, so all of these comments here, get rid of that, and then get rid of this line of code and this one. Give it a save. And so this is what your code should look like at this point. So we're only importing the React library, the React DOM library, and also this app file. So this is something that we are importing from app, so from app.js, which is this file right here. And you don't need to understand all of this here for now. So for now, we only want to really build the application and not really understand what all this importing here does, and yeah, really this entire file structure, what it all really means. So instead, let's just open up this file. Let's again delete some lines of code here. Okay, and then let's also delete most of what is in here. So actually, let's delete all of this. And then let's together now type h1 and again, or hello world. All right. So in the end, app.js should look like this and index.js should look like this. And for some reason you have some doubt, you can always download the final code of this section and check if your code is exactly the same as mine. And that's true for all the code that we are writing in this section. Okay. So if for some reason your application is not working, please go ahead and check out the code that we wrote in the video by downloading the final files of this section. And there you can then compare your code exactly with my code. But anyway, this file, if it looks like this for you, you can actually close it because we will no longer be needing it. What we also no longer need is this live server that we started earlier. So we started here, remember the live server. But now let's click again here. And so this will then close the server. And so after that, it should go back to simply saying go live. So this means that if we open the page we had before, so if for some reason you still have that opened, and if you refresh, then the connection to that server should be gone and we will no longer see what we have here. Yeah, exactly. That's what we expected. Because now we will basically run a command here in the terminal, which will then do the same thing, but for our React app. So basically a live server that is provided by Create React App so that we can always see the latest changes in our React app. So the command for that is called start. So let's close that. And here let's clean up the console, at least if you want. But you can also simply now type npm run start. Hit enter. And that should then open up a new tab in your browser. And there it is. And wait for it. We should very soon see exactly hello world. So that is just this h1 that we have here. So if we now once again right click and inspect it, we will find that this is the h1 that we just wrote. So congratulations, you just created your very first and very small React application, but it is a React app. And so we achieved the goal of this lecture, which was to successfully set up a React application. And so now in the next lecture, we are ready to actually write some meaningful code for this app.